Morning. I wanted to bring our attention to a passage in Luke chapter 7 this morning, and it's a story about the woman who anoints Jesus' feet. And in my Bible it says Jesus anointed by a sinful woman. And Jesus goes to the house of Simon the Pharisee, and while he's there, a woman comes in and anoints his feet. And the Pharisee says to him, if Jesus had known who it was that did this, he wouldn't accept it. And Jesus tells a parable of two people who owe two sums of money, one 500 denarii, the other 50. And the one to whom they are owed cancels the debt. And Jesus says about those people and about this woman that therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, for she loved much, but he who has been forgiven loves little. When we were in Scotland, I got the chance to go to a meeting on a Friday night in a place called Bethel, and it's a home in Motherwell that they for addicts. So people who are addicted to all kinds of things go there, and it's a residential home. And we were told before we went that they sing with all this gusto, but often you can't make out the song that they're singing because the singing is so bad. So we were kind of prepared for this. And I went and wasn't expecting what happened. We got there, and when they started to sing, it was incredible. They were singing songs and they absolutely believed everything that they were singing. They were singing the song, "Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And these people knew that were it not for Jesus, they would not only be dead in their transgressions and sins, but they could probably be dead in a gutter somewhere. And they knew that their salvation, their very lives, depended on Jesus. Not just today, but tomorrow they would depend on Jesus for the strength that he would give by his Spirit to enable them to break free of the addiction for the next day. And they knew the truth and the power of the gospel. And I was so touched while we were there. I was in tears because I thought to myself, that verse came to my mind, but in the translation, he who has been forgiven much loves much. And I thought to myself, yes, they've been forgiven their many sins of their addiction and I guess all the ways that they had failed because of that addiction. But I thought to myself how much greater my sin was, because mine was the sin of pride. And I went to that meeting thinking I wasn't, not that I was better, but I wasn't as bad as those people, or I hadn't sinned as much as those people. And when we were singing, when we were worshipping, they were worshipping, I was singing, I was struck by how little I value the gospel and how little I understand the depth of my sin. And what I was thinking about that night was, okay, possibly, could I read that verse, he who has been forgiven much loves much? Could I read it, he who has been forgiven many times? And how often do I actually ask God for forgiveness? I don't come every day and ask God for forgiveness of my sins. And I have taken the salvation of Jesus Christ, the debt that he paid, and the cost of that for granted. And I thought, that's it, I'm forgiven, once saved, always saved, so I don't need to ask for forgiveness again. And I don't sin that badly anyway. And I realised the sin of pride and why pride is the greatest sin, because I didn't think I'd sinned much, so I don't come to God very often to confess because I haven't done much. Whereas those people, they showed me that their very dependence every day, they knew it was on Jesus. They knew it was on the salvation and the mercy of God. And I was so challenged that day. Unfortunately, I'm not that challenged every day, but I just want that to be our thought this morning. He who has been forgiven much loves much. Now, we don't know what that woman's sin was. People say she was a prostitute. Don't know, it just is a sinful woman. But even if she was, whatever she had done, she knew the gravity of her sin. She knew that she was a sinner, and so she was willing to come to Jesus and accept his mercy and his forgiveness. How much are we aware of our own sin? And how grateful are we to Jesus for the cross? How real is the gospel to us? Is it real? Is it life-changing? Is it what we depend on every day? And that's just something I want to leave with us this morning.